Alright, so this is part 2 to the energy absorbing hat insert that I developed. Right, so we're just going to go and jump right in. If you've watched the first video, we got as far as making the mold and doing the basic lamination. Now we're going to cut it into plates, laminate and build it up to 10 layers thick. We're going to add foam and elastic, and finally at the end of the video you will see a bunch of tests that I've conducted. And I'm going to give you guys final thoughts on how you could improve this design if you were to make your own, and just some other things to think about kind of futuristically, as well as the next project I'm actually gearing up right now to start working on. So hope you guys enjoy. Thank you. Alright, so I went ahead and cut it into 5 pieces, as you can see. One middle large piece and then 4 like domed arch pieces. Okay, and I labeled it so that way I know which side each of them go on, even though they're about the same size. I also cut 7 layers for each of them, so it'll be a total of 10 layers of fiberglass thick with resin, and they're very flexible, being only 3 layers thick. I also buffed down all the like nasty folded areas. There's still a little bit of rippling at the bottom, but for the most part it'll definitely laminate pretty easily, so that's what we're going to get on to right now. So yeah, like I said before, you could have just done one solid piece, but I think this is going to set the camera up on the tripod. I think this is going to work a lot better because of them being individual pieces. It'll be able to flex on your head and maybe be a little bit more comfortable, fit into different hats better, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to make up some of the Max Bond resin. We're going to laminate each piece, put them in the sheet, put it in my cure box so we can speed up the process, and maybe be done with this by the end of tonight. I'll probably still wait off on a day before I test it, as you should let most resins cure for 48 or 24 to 48 hours, sometimes even 3 days, depending on the resin. So, another thing, if you're like me, I like to use plastic cups generally for my resins, but some plastics will dissolve the second these types of hardeners will hit them. So I go cheap and I just cut a pop can top off. It doesn't react with the aluminum. I mean, you're going to throw it away anyways right after, so why not, right? Alright, so let's get started on this. Excited to see how it turns out. Alright, so first I start with the center large piece, and labeling it was a good idea too, because it helped when I was assembling it. I could still kind of make out those initial markings of like 1, 2, 3, and 4, so it helped, and it definitely does affect when it's on your head, having which direction, knowing that like number 1 was towards the front of the hat and everything like that. So that definitely helped out once because I took the mold itself and placed it into the hat I was using to see and figure out exactly how it sat in initially while I was building it up. So as you can see, I applied a little bit of resin initially to the surface of the 3 that we had already laminated, and then I apply a single ply of the fiberglass, and I'm trying to work out any air bubbles. So I start in the center, kind of like allow some of it to drip on, and then spread it out evenly. And right now I'm just kind of racing the clock. That's why I feel like I should have split this project into 2. I should have done like 3 plates and then done the other 2 separately while mixing it up, because this resin gets thick quickly and it starts to cure fast. So it's important to remember that, like, the amount of time you allow yourself, and that's also why I've learned, cut all your pieces first, have them laying out on the, you know, from the top one being what will be the bottom piece that goes on, to the bottom one being the top piece, you know. So if the top piece would have been carbon fiber, have that at the bottom of the stack, so that way you can just easily grab them and go. And so I'm just stacking layers, applying resin, starting to work out air bubbles, and just putting more and more resin onto it. Because right now I don't really care about it's not as critical if I have too little resin. And if you have to peel back plies to kind of help work out air bubbles, you can. But like I said, if I did this again, I would have definitely preferred to split this project in half so I wasn't racing as much as I was going through each of these plates, because this is a lot of fiberglass to work with all at once and a lot of resin. So something to think about if you're doing this yourself. Alright, so it's the next day. I already started cutting these up. As you can see, they turned out really well. A few things. If you're following along, I would say split that project in half for lamination. It was very difficult to laminate all these pieces up in the time frame that I needed for the amount of layers and not get bubbles. There's a little bit of delamination here. I should have waited a little bit longer for cutting. So what I'm going to do is fill that void space there. But all in all, they turned out really well, and they are, man, they are solid. This is some good resin. So what I'm doing now, I'll show you one that I haven't started cutting yet, as you can see. I'm just taking an air saw. You could use a hand saw, and I'm cutting around exactly the shape that it was initially, and you can see it in there where the original one is compared to all the additional layers, and I'm just trimming off all this excess. That's mainly why I broke it down before I started laminating it. I figured it would be easier to drape it over these smaller pieces instead of one full piece, that many layers, and then cutting it because I wanted it to be articulate. Cutting through that many layers is quite difficult even for an air saw. So that's the main reason why I broke it down. If you were just doing a solid piece, of course, like I mentioned, you could have just built it up and then, you know, you wouldn't have any problems just cleaning it up. So anyways, so the next step's going to be clean these edges so that way they all fit together, again using sandpaper, a Stanley blade, and an air saw. And then what we're going to do is sand down the inside, put some glue, put the visco-elastic gel on the inside, or the foam, and probably put some elastic to hold them together, and we'll be done. So I'm excited. A few other things. Let's see. This resin is very hard. It's very tough resin. Man, it looks really cool too. I like this, almost like kind of an amber color. But a few things about sanding it. Obviously, it kicks up a lot of dust when you have this much fibers and stuff. That stuff is itchy. I'm wearing long sleeve shirt. Wear a dust mask if you're sanding it or cutting it, especially, because it kicks it up into your face. Your face is going to be all red. So well ventilated area, yeah, you know, safety, you know, that sort of stuff probably by now. Just even a simple dust mask is going to work. You don't need a full-on respirator. But so yeah, I'm going to get to cutting, and then I'll show you when all the pieces together. I'll show you the sanding so you guys can see how I'm getting them to line up inside of the initial piece and everything, and of course applying the foam. So let's get to it. Alright, so as you can see, I'm taking an air saw to trim all the excess fibers and resin away. You could use a hand saw like a hacksaw, or if you had some electric equipment you could use maybe a jigsaw. There are special blades for plastic you would probably want to acquire if you're going to be cutting this. Really, I'm using the blade itself is multi-purpose, can be used on metal, wood, and plastics. But if, depending on the tools you have, maybe you should look into acquiring that sort of blades for your air saw that are specific for like acrylic and polycarbonate. Those work really well on epoxy. And most of the finishing I did on these plates, honestly, was just with a Stanley blade and a thing of sandpaper. I mean, it just go slow and work at it. Alright, so it's a few days later, and as you can see, it's coming along nicely. Where these pieces of tape will eventually be elastic, so that way it can form. But I've been just shaping it with some sandpaper and some grinders. But as you can see here, I mean, it's coming along real nicely. Holds the shape real well. This is some nice resin. I'll show you it in the hat. Have a little go. I'm just kind of working it to get enough clearance for it to fit in comfortably into the hat, and also to of course, have enough room for the foam. But just like that, it's on. So now what I'm going to do is clean it up a little bit more, shape it, probably then put the elastic on it and put the foam in it, and we'll do some tests. So, but anyways, I kind of messed up a little bit on the edge right here, but that's the general idea. So let's get to sanding the inside, making it nice and even, and of course putting in the foam. Alright, so now on to adding the foam. The type of foam I'm using is Shock Tech Air to Gel foam. You can get it off their website. I'm using a 1/4 inch thick version of it. You can also get it at an 1/8 inch and in the gel form. What I've done is applied a little bit of spray adhesive, cut it to the shape, and just pressed it in. What I'm going to do after I get the foam in it is I will attach elastic to it, so that way their small plates are able to flex and move a bit instead of just being free-forming or free-flowing inside the hat. And I think it'll work just fine. So let me get to gluing this in and I'll show you guys the final product. I'll probably build up some layers on the void areas and see what kind of adjustments we might need to make along the way. So. Alright, so I used just some cheap craft glue in order to put the plates, the foam to the plates. The main reason is I wanted to be able to peel it back if I needed to, or use a thinner, smaller amount of the foam, or if I wanted to build it up so I could easily move it around instead of making it more permanent with like a Gorilla Glue or an industrial strength spray glue. But really it held in pretty well. When we talk about the elastic, I did use Gorilla Glue, and we'll do that at the very end of the video. Next, you're going to see a bunch of clips of me testing it. Now, a friend of mine came over and helped me test this, and if I would show the whole video of all that, it would be well over a half an hour. So what I did was I broke it down into just the different things that we used to test it while I was wearing it, and I'll explain at the very end of the video what I would change about this hat, how I would build it slightly differently. I'll show you guys the full completed project at that time. So next up will be me testing it, and then my friend Flash testing it on me. So let's get to it. We'll start with a brick. Nothing. Small hammer. Nightstick. See if I can get it in the frame, get the sides too. Just kind of holding it so I don't like the whole hat slide over. And how about this fella? Big old monkey wrench. It's actually quite heavy. Be a hell of a club. Knocking my glasses off. Yeah, but nothing. Not even a headache. Kentucky bourbon. Bourbon.
Kentucky bourbon.
There you go. Hit it from the back. So, and then from the top. You hear the ting from it. And really nothing. It's like, it's amazing how much energy that visco-elastic can absorb.
It's a hard glass bottle.
Yeah, it's a hard glass bottle. So yeah, go ahead. We'll scale up.
There you go.
All right.
That was like 20%.
Yeah, okay. Let's go 30. There we go. Okay, 40. That was like 50. You gave me 50 there. Don't even lie. All right.
I'm trying to go faster here.
Okay. All right, fine. 60.
That was up.
Yeah,
ready?
go. Nice piece of granite. I think that's granite. We'll say it's granite for the sake of this video. It's granite now. You heard it here on the Jay Show. I was like, what angle are you coming at? Like, I thought you were coming like an uppercut. How heavy would you say this is, Flash?
8 pounds.
There. All right, go ahead. Wu-Tang Clan.
That's a good one.
I felt it, but it really wasn't that I couldn't think of anything else. Oh man. Like, that's solid. Like, I can feel it, but it's not enough, like, to make me dizzy or give me a headache.
Or bust open.
Yeah, bust open. That's the important thing. You know, you're not gonna get any splits. You're not gonna need stitches. Like, the person would have to try they would have to be very big, and even a guy, a Flash's stature, couldn't really cut me open wearing this. I mean, he would have to use a knife or something, and he would have to miss the plates themselves. But I don't know. I think as far as impact absorbent, what do you think, Flash? I mean, you were the one that was hitting. What do you think?
I was giving you good punches, good hits. I mean, you're standing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've hit quite a few people, and that kind of hurt punching you in the head.
Right.
And
I can't believe that knocked it off, though. It's the only one that has. You've hit me with a nightstick, a bottle.
I didn't hold back on the punch. That was.
Yeah, I know you went on. I know. It was like this upwards blow. That'll still be my favorite. Like, I didn't feel it, but I just felt my hand come off.
Yeah, that. I went full force on the hands right there. Nothing.
Alright, so after doing all those tests, I've learned a lot about how it should fit inside the hat so that way it clings to it. If you notice through some of it, I had to hold the bill because it kind of shifts. But the longer it sits on you, because it is a visco-elastic foam, it actually starts to contour to your scalp. And so what's nice about that is it really helps keep it in place. But as you can see, you know, and in some of those clips, a part of it was protruding down that you could actually see, but I've got it in pretty well now. But the big thing I wanted to talk about was its shape and how there was an upwards hit, and I'll put in the clip right here. So say a random attacker is coming from the left side. Oh no, random attacker, I don't see this coming. Sucker punch to the head. You knocked my hat off. Yeah. That knocked my hat off. And the reason, like I said, it's like that. So what I thought was putting the elastic, I'll go ahead and show you guys this. This is how I put the elastic on. I put them here, this way, and here. I would probably put them even lower. But then I started thinking about it after wearing it at work a lot, was running it underneath the foam itself. Because what I did was, after that clip, I actually ripped off these pieces and made them smaller, so that way they would curl in a little bit better. And I think that if they were even smaller still, it would be perfect at holding on. Looks real goofy without the hat, let me tell you. But with the hat on, it's hardly noticeable. Also finding the way that it faces based off the mold, because remember we did make a mold from this hat. So the way that that's facing really does, like which plate is in the front compared to the back, definitely does help. And just switching them around will make them kind of jut out a little bit. Now it does fit into other hats too. I don't have my Atari hat in here, but it does fit in that, but you can see it out the back because this one's, you know, pure elastic around it, but that one's got the snap back, so you could see it there. But if that's the kind of hat you like, you could always just cut around that so people couldn't easily see it. So adding thicker elastic underneath the foam, I would imagine would hold it together, definitely lowering where you put the foam in relation to the plate, maybe even using a large sheet of elastic underneath the foam rather than just these bands, so that way the whole thing could give. I think would really work. I'm surprised it doesn't really make my head sweat. This visco-elastic foam is amazingly, I mean, first off, it doesn't collect bacteria. It doesn't, the surface doesn't allow bacteria to grow on it. It's water resistant. And if you're cutting it, something to think about too. I was having a little bit of trouble on the edges with just even a Stanley blade, you know, a razor blade. Using a little bit of silicone, from what they said on their website, will reduce like friction around that so it doesn't kind of rip and tear, so that way you could get a cleaner edge. something I didn't do, but if you were building it yourself, maybe look into. But I mean, man, I've been hit so many times by different people. So, final thoughts, shorten the elastic that you're going to be put on it. You know, maybe use only 7 layers of the fiberglass so it's a little bit thinner. Break up that whole process and do it in groups rather than doing it all at once. And yeah, enjoy. I hope you liked it. And I mean, it really does. It stays on the head pretty well. And it weighs less than a pound. I think the total weight was 1.7. So like 1 pound and 7 ounces or something like that. So it's very lightweight. And stay armored and stay safe. If you guys enjoyed this video, please you know, like and share it, and you know, suggest stuff that you guys would like to see be built. I'm going to be working on a shield here very soon. I have all these sheets of ballistic grade polycarbonate, so I'm going to be doing a riot shield. I've got this mold made up, and I'm going to coat it in lacquer, and I'm going to be turning that into a bulletproof mask. I'm working on gloves and a few new plate designs, so plenty to look forward to in the upcoming months. So please share these. I've spent a lot of time working on these, so hopefully you guys enjoy. And you know, I love feedback. If you think they should be shorter or I should edit them differently, let me know. Alright, talk to you guys later.